Good evening, everyone. I'm your unelected host for the evening. President, taking care of yourself at home for certain activities tomorrow. Good. I'll leave it at that. Let you know what she's up to. We start this evening. Frank, give a real quick financial report. Can you speak up?
I would think at the courthouse on the left side of the front. We collected $4,700 so far. We have received 2 grants that went from the city of Richmond for $10,000 for funds for acquisition things we need to keep our historical society information going. And the other one was a $15,000 grant for interpretive signs that was published through the tourism from the city last year. So there's some interpretive signs placed in the different parts of the city based on the footprints that was shared and became doing with that stuff. And then our general fund balance is $48,000. So
Thank you. Any questions on the money? Anybody want to make a big donation? We'll hold a meeting if we want to do that. The only other thing I'll say on the World War II monument is that it has been ordered and it is going to be branded, and the lead time on getting it from the quarry to Rockcastle County is about 4 to 5 months. So it's been ordered so it can start making its way to Kentucky. Probably everybody in the room knows that our cottage, which is the new headquarters for our society, is open, and Sharon has been working very hard with some help to get things organized over there. So if you have a chance and are in that vicinity, stop by and check it out. We've got relatively modest number of reference books and other information that stop and see what we've got. And we are going to have volunteers to help man the location for every day of the week. We can get volunteers. We have a few now that are coming fairly regularly. And if you want to spend some time over there, 1 day a month or 1 day a week, get with Sharon and she'll get you scheduled in. And that helps a lot. Her office is there for the city and for other tech. And she does that, and on occasions has to go out and do other things. So having a volunteer there helps a whole lot. So if anybody wants to do that, please stop in and see. If you haven't been there, go ahead and stop in and just take a walk through. Francis has our store open there after the meeting presentation, and we've got publications, our sets of note cards, got 4 sets now, different things, and then we've got unique T-shirts with all the names of the villages of the town. So with that, if somebody's got questions, we'll get into the presentation. And we're lucky this evening to have Dr. Glen Birkett about the Wolfskill family.
Does he need to be?
Wendy
Does he need to be
is
influenced? It could be.
in education department in California.
So does he need to be? Go.
College, but how And he went to do his master's degree at the Lexington Theological Seminary. One of his requirements was to be student preaching. And I think everybody in the county here knows what the student teaching part is. He was trying to preach. While he was doing that,
I think it's kind of pretty.
went to White Oak Pine Church to do it. And he found a young lady there that he was quite enamored with, and in doing so, he said he fell in love with both preaching and the girl, and she became his wife. He ended up getting his doctorate from the seminary and spent 33 years preaching at 3 different churches in central Kentucky. And when he married Jane Norris, that's who he married, and some of you may know the Norris family, he promised her he would stop preaching at 60 and he would not do interim pastor. No, I think he met one of those requirements. He stopped and retired at 60, but he's had like 6 interim pastorships since then, and 2 of those were spent at the First Christian Church just down the street here. When he was in retirement, he got into research of history and did a fabulous book on the history of the First Christian Church. And I don't know if you were going to hold it up or whatever, but this is it. So he has done a tremendous amount of research and documentation of the church. And as part of that, he identified notable Madison Countyans, not necessarily Madison Countyans who stayed here their whole life, but they started out here and may have gone somewhere else. And that brings us to the subject of his presentation tonight, the Wolfskill people. So if you would, help me welcome Dr. Glen Birkett.
Is my microphone on?
Yes.
Too loud? Want you to be able to sleep if you need to. I've always been interested in. Okay. Okay. I've always been interested in how the twists and turns of life shape us. As Tom was mentioning, I had no interest in coming to Kentucky and staying here and marrying here and becoming a pastor. My mother used to say that I'd either be a minister or a lawyer because I like to talk so much. And I always said, I will be a lawyer because I will never, ever be a minister. But the twists and turns of life really kind of shape us without our knowing it at the time. And so we look back upon those things, and the history of First Christian that I wrote, spent 4 years on and then got the lousiest printing and publishing job there could ever be. And it doesn't hold together, it falls apart and everything. But anyway, I loved doing the research, and I loved the history of the church. That includes all the previous ministers, all of the charter members, and all major happenings in the life of the church. And one of the most interesting twists and turns was that Charles Bronston Jr., who was an attorney, a bank president, a merchant here in Richmond in the 1800s, was the first church clerk at First Christian Church in 1844. And we had 55 charter members, and he wrote their names in this ledger. This ledger, nobody knew about. I certainly didn't know anything about it. No one who's living now knew about it. But one day in 1920, electricity, I guess, was just about in its first days here in Richmond and Madison County, baby. And there was an electrician in an old office building on Main Street in downtown Richmond. And he was digging around and he found this book. Now he was looking through the pages of it and he saw the name Caperton. So he knew of Catherine Caperton out in Amberley, and so he took it out to her. Well, that was the best person that he could possibly turn it over to because she was our church historian. And so she preserved it and transcribed it. And it was just a twist and turn of life that you would never have any idea that the book would get lost, that it would show up in an attic. An electrician would find it in 1920. He would recognize the Caperton name. He'd take it out to Catherine's house. And if that had not happened, we would have absolutely no idea of who our charter members were. And our charter members were quite a who's who of Madison County. But that's for another time. But Thomas Bronston Jr. Was one of the 5 purchasers of Lot 74. And he was the church clerk. His house is still standing over here on Woodland Avenue. Doesn't look like that anymore. It looks more like this. And it was designed by Matthew Kennedy, who was the first Kentuckian to ever be known as an architect or to call himself an architect. And Matthew Kennedy also designed the Coy House out on Cal East and a number of other nice houses here in Madison County. But twists and turns. Anyway, so when I found out the names of the charter members, I thought, well, I'm going to do a little bit more. So I started researching it. And I actually came up with a total of 16 natives of Madison County who became famous or respected in the nation and perhaps the world. And some of them you'll see there. But we had one major general here, 2 brigadier generals, 1 presidential candidate, 1 nominee, the first to ever be nominated by the Democratic Party for consideration. She didn't win the nomination, but she was nominated. That's Laura Clay, 1 lieutenant governor, and there's some more. But anyway, how many Madison County natives became governor of a state? You read the book? Okay. Absolutely 5. I think that's interesting. I don't know any other thing we can say that people born that of governor. Who's that? McCreary. Yeah. He was a 6-term congressman, U.S. senator. McCreary County is named for it. He was governor twice of Kentucky. Who's that? Stone. William Joel Stone, a congressman, governor of Missouri, U.S. senator, chair of the Foreign Relations Committee. Who's that? Y'all know him. There's something in town that should remind you of him every day. That is David Rowland Francis, one of the richest men of Missouri, governor of Missouri, mayor of St. Louis, secretary of the Interior, and our 2nd ambassador to Russia. That's why you should know who James McCreary is. He donated the fountain on the corner of the courthouse. That's not a picture or a sculpture of him. That's the typical pioneer looking back toward Cumberland Gap, where most of the people who came to Madison County in the early days came. Okay, 4th one, Hancock Lee Jackson. He was lieutenant governor of Missouri and governor of Missouri for a short time until they had an election, got rid of it. And then Green Clay Smith, what was he governor of? Montana Territory, yeah. And, okay, so I think that's kind of interesting. How many natives have been, I know we told you two, Laura Clay and Green Smith. Um, let's see. By the way, after he was the brigadier general and congressman and governor of Montana Territory, he came back and was pastor at First Baptist Church. Who's our Madison County native who was a justice to the Supreme Court? He never came back after he left. He went down to Portland where he practiced medicine and law for a while, but he never came back here. Samuel Freeman Miller. He wrote more opinions in his day than any other justice. And anyway, so I came across William Wolfskill. And this is by Fred Abel about William Wolfskill. It was published in 1970. And that kind of piqued my interest because I'd never heard of him. And I started asking people about the Wolfskills, and nobody had ever heard of him. So I decided to do some research on him. And one of those twists of fate. If you told me when I graduated high school in Tucson, Arizona, that someday I'd be talking to a historical society about a guy by the name of William Wolfskill, I'd say that's impossible. You can't put things together to make that up. But William Wolfskill was one of the children of Joseph Wolfskill Jr. and Sarah Reed. They say that every history I've seen of William Wolfskill says that he was a native of Boonesboro, but none of the Wolfskills are on any Boonesboro list. So, does that mean they're all wrong or not? Well, then I found out that, this is just a little history of his parents, I'll skip that. I found out that, I call these the Beverly Hillbillies. They're the original Beverly Hillbillies because they came from Kentucky and went to California. This is William. I'll talk mainly about him. This picture is the only picture known to have been taken of him, and it was taken 6 days before he died. His family knew he was dying, so they said, we need to have a picture. So they got him to take a picture, and those are his brothers that he enticed to move to California after he had gone out there. Let's see. So some of them did go. Some of them, the family moved from northern Madison County, Boonesboro areas, supposedly, in 1809. But some of them, they all moved to Daniel Boone's new territory, Boone's Lick, in Howard County, Missouri. And some of them stayed there, but a number of them, as I say, went to California. Margaret Wolfskill was one of William's sisters, and she was born in Madison County, and she married John Reed in Howard County, and they had 2 children, but she stayed in Missouri. Elizabeth Wolfskill, another sister of William, was born in 1801 and died as an infant. And then William was born in 1798 and died in California in 1866. And today happens to be his 227th birthday. We lose to bring the cake. 227 years ago, he was born here in Madison County. The first brother he got to come out to California was John Reed Wolfskill, and he was the first white person to settle in what is now the Napa Valley area, or Sacramento Valley. He did very well for himself. Back up. Okay, so I have found a couple of references that say that the Wolfskills located where Silver Creek goes into the Kentucky River. Well, that makes more sense that he wouldn't be included among the Boonesboro people, but since Boonesboro was the only settlement at that point, he might be considered that. so I did find that, and this is where Silver Creek goes into the Kentucky River. And as you see, it's a little ways away from Bootsboro, but remember, Bootsboro was the only civilization. So I guess that's the only explanation I can give. Daniel Boone was 65 years old when he walked to Missouri from Kentucky in 1799. He settled near St. Charles and spent his last 21 years in Missouri. On one of his hunting expeditions, he came into Howard County and discovered a salt spring 8 miles north of New Franklin, and his sons established a salt works there, and the area became known as Boone's Lake. Didn't think to ask him when I just walked up. I don't know. Maybe, maybe walking is just a figure of speech. It sounds a little better than riding a thoroughbred into the state. In 1809, as I said, Joseph and Sarah Wolfskill moved their family to Boots Lake, Missouri. William was 11 years old. He returned to Madison County and when he was 15 for a couple of years of education. He knew Kit Carson from the time Kit Carson was an infant because they were all there, and the general locality where Daniel Boone and his family had relocated. The Boones and the Wolfskills had known each other in North Carolina before they came to Kentucky. Okay, this is one of the other brothers that came after John came, after William came. And he established a farm or a ranch in Mancos Corner, California. And this is another brother who came out, and he also was there in the Sacramento Valley. And then Milton Wolfskill was the fourth of the brothers to come out after William. When William was 24 years old in 1821, he said goodbye to his family and he joined the second expedition of Captain William Becknell's wagon train over the Santa Fe Trail, named for its destination in New Mexico. Total of 21 men started out in Franklin, Missouri with 3 wagons of clothing, fabric, hardware, and knives to trade and sell when they got wherever they were going, and hopefully Santa Fe. For 10 years, William trapped beaver for the fur, which he shipped back east and bought herds of cattle and drove them east. He made a good bit of money doing this. In the fall of 1827, he, along with 2 of Kit Carson's brothers, William and Robert, drove 170 head of horses and mules back east. William made money no matter what he was doing. While he was in Santa Fe, those 10 years trapping and sending livestock back east, he met a guy by the name of Jedediah Smith, who told him about his trip to California, and that there was a lot of available animals there to be trapped, and you could make a fortune by doing that. And so William was a smart guy. And remember, he was educated in Madison County. So he knew that as a citizen of the U.S., or he couldn't legally trap or do any business in the territory of Mexico, which California still was and New Mexico still was. So he petitioned to become a Mexican citizen and changed his name to Jose Guillermo Wolfskill, or Guillermo Wolfskill. And he changed his citizenship. And so by late 1830, everything had been purchased, and William and 20 other trappers were ready to start heading toward California. Problem was, there was really no good route to do that other than some old Mexican slave routes. And I did not realize until I started doing this how terrible some Mexican people treated the Indians. I mean, it was awful what some of them did. Anyway, so William and George Aunt and others are getting ready to head out and make their way to California, to the land of opportunity. And they took what was known as the main route or the central route or the northern route from Santa Fe to Los Angeles. And they took the northern route in order to avoid the Navajo territory and most of the difficult canyons. And so this is what the map looked like of our country at that time. And so this is the Santa Fe Trail, and it goes here to Santa Fe. And then this is once you get to Santa Fe, off of the Santa Fe Trail, these are the main routes that were eventually opened up. And William Wolfskill took the northern route and went through Las Vegas and ended up in Los Angeles. If he had done nothing other than open up that route, he probably would be known by historians, but he did a whole lot more. Now, in Taos and Santa Fe at the time, there was a guy who had become a distiller by the name of Simeon Turley. And he distilled a drink called the Taos Lightning. It was a whiskey, and it was the drink of choice for all celebrations and in New Mexico at the time. And William decided they would take no Taos Lightning on the trip because it was going to be difficult, and he didn't want a bunch of drunks with him. And so, no, it was specific that no Taos Lightning would be on the trip. This is just some of the 700 miles that they had to traverse. And of course, when they did the old Spanish Trail, which is Santa Fe to Los Angeles, it became the final lap of when they did the old Spanish Trail from Santa Fe to Los Angeles, it became the last lap of the Santa Fe Trail. Okay. The trip got so bad, this gets a little gory, but the trip got so bad that they actually cut off a mule's ears and tried to get enough liquid from the blood to survive. But then they found a buffalo by, so they shot that, and they were so thirsty they cut open the stomach and drank the water from the stomach. But finally they get to Southern California, and where Father Juniper Sarah Fair, the apostle of California, had established 10 missions, and these are the 10 missions. And they go on the route to Los Angeles, they go to the San Gabriel mission, and that's where William first discovers that there are things that are growing really well in California, like orange trees and grapevines. That's the San Gabriel mission. And so he decides that he's going to, because of what the guy Jebediah Smith had said in Santa Fe about the abundance of wildlife, that he was going to hunt sea otter, and send the pelts back to East and make his fortune. So he had a schooner built. And until the schooner was finished, he was allowed to stay at the San Gabriel mission. But after a short trip on that schooner, one time, he decided that that was not going to be a way that he was going to make enough money, so he decided to become a settled farmer. That's a schooner at the time. I don't know that that's specifically his. As a Mexican citizen, he was allowed to buy land in Los Angeles, and so he bought 28 acres, and in 1836 and 1838, he traded that for 100 acres. And that's kind of where his land was. You'll see Central Station And this is downtown Los Angeles, Union Station now. In fact, his sons sold a good deal of his property so that they could build Union Station. Well, the first one was something called Arcade Station. He decided that he'd raise some orange trees and everything else he possibly could to make some money. He built a house called the Old Adobe, and this is 100 acres, and this is just a depiction of it. And he did, whatever he did well. There's some pictures of the Old Adobe. In 1833, he married a Spanish lady, Maria de la Luz Valencia, and is probably a common law marriage. They were married long enough for them to have 3 children. She fell in love with a silversmith there in town, ran off with him, and ended up in Mexico, and never to be heard of as far as we know again. By the way, the guy she ran off with was shot less than a year later in Mexico. But he was the first person to think that what is now California would be a great place to raise table grapes, so he planted vines. And 99% of all his U.S. produced table grapes come from California. In 2022, the crop for California was valued at 2.13 billion, and we eat 10 pounds of grapes a year. As of November 24th, 2024, I should say, these statistics regarding orange, he was the first person to plant orange trees. He got the orange trees and the grapevines from the San Gabriel Mission, and California produces 79% of all U.S. citrus. And produced 4.15 million tons of citrus, an increase in 2024 over the previous year. Acreage used in California now is 266,000 acres, and it translates into $2.5 billion worth of an industry. He was the first person to cultivate the Valencia orange and named it after his then wife. I don't know that he thought about changing the name of it after she left, but it's still known as the Valencia orange. He owned the largest orange grove in the world. He owned 3/4 of all the oranges in California. The Valencia orange is the #1 juice orange, and it's because it's juicy and sweet and seedless and fairly large. It's still used as one of the primary oranges for orange juice. His sons later in 1877, 11 years after he died, were the first ones to ship by train oranges east on the Southern Pacific Railroad. And they had to change the ice, I think, like 11 times. And there's a figure someplace. Oh, his sons also, after he died, and these men, these Wolfskills, were scientists, got a good education in Madison County. And something from Australia, some kind of white bug, started on the orange trees, and the Wolfskills and the state of California brought in Australian ladybugs. They had them nearly frozen on ice, and they turned them loose on the Wolfskill orange grove, and within weeks rather, the orange groves had repaired itself, and then orange growers from all over the region came and got ladybugs. They would literally bring limbs full of the white bug and put them in the orange grove. The ladybugs would attack them. They'd take them back to their orange grove, and that's how they fought this infestation. Let's see, I already said that. He's the founder of the California grape industry, one of the founders of the California wine industry, and the founder of California citrus industry. He had vineyards all over the place, and when he died in 1866, his wine vineyards were producing 50,000 gallons of wine a year. That's just kind of the impact of wine on California and the country. During the gold rush, he shipped a whole shipload of citrus up to the gold rush territory. And he sold each orange or lime or lemon for $1, which in today's money would be $40.21. Remember, they discovered that citrus was a preventative or a cure to scurvy. And so they were really in need of that, and William knew how to do it. He was the first person to grow lima beans in California. Now this was, I think, like 1855. His brandy, he was getting $1.80 per gallon. And so he made it in 1855, 8,500 on brandy, 11,025 on wine, peaches 600, pears 2,800, and just from those crops, in today's money was $933,000. He was the first person to import from Australia eucalyptus trees. He imported them the year before he died, so they never got to see them grow. If you've ever been to Southern California, you've seen the eucalyptus trees. Okay, this is some of the land, and I don't know how much time I'm probably running out of time. This is some of the land that he owned, either outright or in partnership. And then underneath it are some of the towns where that land is now. 6,500 acres, 4,400 acres, Redwood, Bel Air, Los Angeles. There's a little house that he didn't live in. But that's a house on what he once owned. UCLA's campus. This house is on the property he once owned. It's called The One. And it sold at a bankruptcy sale for $126 million. This is the Santa Anita Ranch with 13,000 acres to it. And it has Pasadena, the Rose Bowl, and Eden Canyon on it. Rancho San Francisco in northwest Los Angeles at 48,000 acres. Has the Los Angeles Arboretum on it. Rancho Loma de Santiago, 47,000 acres, has Irvine and Tustin. When I went to college in California, Irvine was still a ranch. And it was just next to our college campus, and you could drive up there onto the ranch. And this is what Irvine looks like now. That's my college. In 1865, a year before he died, he bought the Rancho Santa Anita, 13,000 acres, or he bought 11,000 acres for $20,000, including portions of Arcadia, Monrovia, Sierra Madre, Pasadena, and Santa Rita. Has things on it now like Santa Anita Racetrack and the Angeles National Forest. He owned a strip of land with others that ran from the coast of the Santa Ana Mountains, 25 miles. There's another 1,200. There's another 25,000 or 29,000. And so just those ranches that I showed you own 205,000 acres of Southern California. But actually they say he owned over 300,000 acres. Let's see, German ancestry. This is a description by one of his son-in-laws 40 years after he died. It says, but in all things he loved those fine qualities of human character, simplicity and sincerity. He was one of that large number of whom there are some in all churches and more in the great church of outsiders who believe that a loyal, honest heart and a good life are the best preparation for death. He was disposed to as great an extent as any man whom I've ever known to always place a charitable construction on the acts and words and motives of others. he believed and acted as though he believed that there is no room in the world for malice. World War I and World War II, there were these Liberty ships. The Liberty ship named after him was built in Los Angeles. These are his children. He married a second time, Maria de la Luz Valencia, no, that's his first wife. His oldest son went to Mexico and never came back. And there's speculation that he might have found his mother there and felt loyalty to her rather than to his father. And then there was a son that was somehow disabled, who was in the Stockton State Hospital and died there. This was his oldest daughter who died at the age of 28. This is the son who went to Mexico and never came back and was not included in the will. This is a daughter who married William Wolfskill, educated all of his children at home, but he also founded the first public school in Southern California. And this is one of his daughters, and she married her 35-year-old teacher when she was 19. Get this is their honeymoon. Their honeymoon trip was a 2,391-mile trip from Los Angeles to St. Louis on a Butterfield stagecoach. Traveling day and night, it took them 18 days in a light coach with 7 other passengers. She died, not from that we know of, in 1863 at the age of 21 or 22, right after she had a child, and is buried in Los Angeles. This is one of her sons. This is one of his sons that took over the farm, the home place, which was quite an example. That started out as 100 acres there in downtown Los Angeles. He was the first grower to send 300 boxes, taking a month and costing $500 to send them back east of Oregon. He divided off and sold the old adobe home place. This is one of his daughters. She received half of the old adobe home place and a lot of vineyards and other things. This is a granddaughter from the woman who took the stagecoach ride on her honeymoon. She got a bunch of stuff. And this is another daughter, left her several vineyards, a store named Apothecary Hall, a house and lot just behind the Catholic Church, and a man from the old adobe. And he gave all his daughters a candle. He had one candle when he first built the old adobe, shipped from New York down over what is that, South America, and brought up to California. Let's see, this is his other son, who was also very instrumental in the operation and got a lot of the land. This is Lewis. He inherited 19,000 acres of ranch land. This daughter died when she was only 4. This is the daughter who came out to California. Now, after William got out there, very short time, this brother comes from Missouri, born in Kentucky, comes from Missouri, spends 10 years in Santa Fe, and does basically the same thing, except he loses his shirt. So he brings his family to William's house and says, "What can I do?" And so William comes into work, and after he's been there 3 or 4 years, he goes and scouts around Napa Valley, Sacramento Valley, and he finds a place that he really likes. Well, of course, he's not going to get a land grant from the Mexicans because he's a U.S. citizen. William is a Mexican citizen. He petitions the governor of Mexico in California to give him a land grant, and lo and behold, the governor gives William Rancho Rio de los Puntos grant. That's supposed to be a U.S. PUTOS grant of 17,000 acres. And so he sends John up there to take care of it. and in 1849, he sells half of it to John for $5,000, 199,000. Anybody want to take up half of 17,000 acres for 199,000? Sounds like a good deal to me. And then a few years later, after John makes some money, William sells the remaining half of it for $2.5 million in today's money. And this is the one that John got. And John, as I said, is the first English settler in the area. And when they get the land, he takes 90 head of cattle and an assortment of peach, figs, olives, orange, pear, and grape seedlings, and he starts producing in the Napa Valley. He takes a common law wife and has a son by her, and then she dies after the son is born. 4 decades later, John's ranch was still selling fruit, vegetables to San Francisco and Sacramento. In 1850, when he went to California, his assets were $5,000. And in 1870, his assets were $4.6 million. He married a second time and had a number of children, 4 daughters. There's 3 of them. That's John on the right, and his wife Susan Cooper, she was a descendant, a daughter of the guy who organized Fort Cooper in Missouri, I think. And they had 4 daughters, 2 of them lived to maturity. He had an interest in, this is one of his sayings: remember you as you pass by, as you are now, so once was I, as I am now, so you must be. Somebody passes me that's really young, I think that. Okay, before John died, he gave about 1,200 acres to each of his surviving children. These are the olive trees that John planted going up to his house. His daughter Fanny donated 100 acres to the University of California, Davis, for their experiment. And those trees are still producing, and you can get online at UC Davis Wolfskill Reserve Oil, and you can get olive oil from those trees. It's good. It's not cheap. But those are trees that he planted in the 1850s. This is Fanny, and so she gave 108 acres to the University of California, Davis. There's just an olive tree. This is her house that was destroyed by an earthquake. This is the Wolfskill Experimental Gardens or Orchards at University of California, Davis, as it is now. Olive oil. Mathis came out. He was born in Howard County in 1810, and he died at Mancus Corners. He joined a wagon train with his family and arrived at John's ranch in 1850. John gave him 1,200 acres. And this is the first home of Mathis and his lovely wife. He's afraid to smile. I guess she just sat down. And
Nope.
and this is his later house as it exists more recently. He sold his homelands in Punta's Grant and purchased property at Magus Grove. He had tremendous success, acquired considerable wealth, and owned much land. This is Magus Corners. His wife and he are both buried in the Rockville Cemetery and Solano Valley, California. Salazar County. This is Sarchel, and he was born at Boomstick, and he died in Winters, which is his. He was given a bunch of land from his brother as well, and he came to California by coming through Panama, and John gave his brother 1,200 acres, and he's buried in the Winters Cemetery. Sarchel. Oh, they asked him if he would ever sell his place, and he said, this is his response, how much this place, just how much this place, which has grown from a wilderness to a garden of Eden under his hand, had become endeared to him by his long residence and tender associations of wife and children, is revealed to us by this incident. Some time ago, he was asked if he would sell his place. He replied, I might sell it if it were not for one word. That word is home. This is his place. This is Milton. I don't know much about Milton. I've never found out where he really, if he really got land from his brother, but he probably did. He initially settled on a 700-acre ranch, that John provided. I'm not sure I have documentation for that, maybe I do. But anyway, he left that ranch, went to Terrell, Texas for a while, returned to Los Angeles. The Wolfskill family, they gave nothing to Kentucky, but Kentucky apparently gave a great deal to them. Because of all that they accomplished, and they used it well. That's it.